Hi everyone, it's me, Krista. Welcome back to my channel if you've been here before. If not, welcome for the very first time to my little art corner here on YouTube. Today I am actually testing out the items that came in November's Sketchbox, the premium box. We got a bunch of gouache paints and a Tombow water brush. Also, we got some rough watercolor postcard paper. As I said in that unboxing video where we opened it up and saw what was inside, I'm not very familiar with using gouache. The last time I did was for a design class in college, which was about 10 years ago. And the gouache I used was Reeves gouache, which is a pretty low student grade one. And I know with a lot of materials, sometimes if you don't like a specific kind, it's a good idea to try other ones and see if your opinion has changed. So that's what we are doing today. For what I'm drawing, I went fairly simple. I decided to do a woman, and I wanted to play around with someone with a deeper skin tone. I have not painted anyone with a deeper skin tone as of late, and I thought these colors would be a good way to experiment with that and get some more practice in. So today's goals are to do a deeper skin tone study and to also do a gouache study to kind of figure out how they work. At this point in the video, I already have in my sketch, and I did that sketch just using a normal, everyday Bic mechanical pencil. For part of the base of the skin tone, I'm using yellow ochre right now, and I will be pulling in burnt sienna. When I first started this, I decided to use a lot of water. I wanted it to be fairly diluted. I realized pretty quickly that these are very, very pigmented, which is awesome. Compared to the previous gouache paints I have experience with, these are significantly more pigmented and they are nowhere near as chalky as the ones I recall. I decided that I wanted to use that leaf green color in the background and for her eyes. It's almost a chartreuse and I like the intensity of the color. I actually like the intensity of all of the colors. I wanted to use them together, but let each of them shine individually and play off of each other. Basically, I tried to keep mixing to a minimum. I do layer them and do some blending for certain areas, but I wanted to let each of these hues shine on their own. And at this point here, I am just using the yellow ochre and the burnt sienna and laying down the base of that skin tone and throwing in a lot of water with that water brush. I really like this Tombow water brush. I was very surprised because I'm not a fan of a lot of Tombow products, specifically their markers. They just don't work for usually what I like to do. But this water brush is pretty baller. It feels very sturdy, it controls the water very well, and it works very nicely with these gouache paints. The Han Mule rough textured postcard watercolor paper, I actually really like the texture of it. It held on to the paints very, very well. With the amount of water that I used, though, I should have taped it down. I used more than it's probably designed for, because it started curling at the edges, which is normal if you don't tape down the paper. It happens. Oopsie, that's a user error. I also noticed that it bled through the edges of the paper a little bit. But I used a lot of water and did a lot of layering, so that is just my application. You might not want to go as ham on it as I did. The postcard paper is not as thick as I normally like, but I love me a very, very thick paper. Abnormally thick paper. And that's just because I'm very rough on surfaces. Oops. At this point, I have already started pulling in the Royal Talons Red Violet. I really enjoyed using this with the burnt sienna color. I thought it helped enrich the color quite a bit and add a deeper shade when you layer them on top of each other or if you mix them together. I did notice that the smell of the red violet color is a little more intense than the other gouaches, but different formulations will have different smells. It's nothing that crazy. I just happened to notice it, and I know some people can be very sensitive to smell. I do start pulling in the Prussian blue to do some light shading. I also really like how this played with the other colors, and I also use it as a base layer for her hair. These Holbein gouache paints are pretty awesome. They're very well pigmented. I actually kind of like them. I like how you can add more water and make it look more like watercolor, and if you use less water, it looks a little bit more like acrylic paint. I dig it. I think they work for a variety of techniques, and I like the colors and the level of pigmentation. Go figure. I thought I was going to hate these because I've had terrible experiences with gouache in the past. It is nice when you're pleasantly surprised when you think it's going to be something you don't care for, and it turns out to be the opposite. Yay! At this point in the painting, I am building up a lot of different layers of the various colors. I do end up pulling in that leaf green to help with some of the skin tone highlights. I was originally trying to just use the yellow ochre color for that, but it wasn't quite as intense as I wanted it. But using the leaf green over it made it pop a little bit more. And it is always interesting watching these back because there is so much of this painting that looks so hideous. There are so many ugly stages, but it does pull together eventually. You gotta work through the ugly stages in order to get to something that looks acceptable. And I know when I started this project, I was super worried about using, first of all, the materials of it being gouache, but secondly, I had just done so many black and white pieces for Inktober that doing something in full color that wasn't just a marker drawing and using paint again was a little scary. You kind of fall into a groove and then go, wait, can I still do this other thing? And literally this entire video, for titling of it when I saved it, I had to keep stopping myself from typing in Inktober. And then at the start of the video, I had to stop myself from saying, hi, it's day so-and-so of Inktober. Got into the habit and we gotta fall out of it. It's like I didn't know what I was doing anymore. Not that I ever fully know what I'm doing, but I usually have some kind of idea. I think sometimes when you, especially with something where you're filming every day and recording something every day, and you're basically, it's a formula of the same idea, that when you have to break away from it again, it gets confusing. Your brain's like, wait a minute, this is different. I have to actually think about what I'm doing. Darn it! But now back to this painting, the one I am working on right now in this video. I am just going back and forth between the colors that we've already been using and layering more and more and using less water each time. You do have to use some water. You don't have to, I guess, but you should use some water because without it, the consistency is very thick to a point where it's difficult to apply without any water at all. There was a point where I wasn't sure if I actually wanted to use any of the black paint. I decided that I would probably end up using it for the hair, but I kept going back and forth about whether I wanted to go over the major lines with it. I did start doing that with the Prussian blue because I realized that specifically mixed with the purple and the red made a very good shadow color. And I did like using it for some of the line work. I do eventually decide to pull in the black over it, but I was satisfied with just using the Prussian blue as the liner. I also wanted to keep her skin tone very warm looking. I didn't want her to look ashy. And I know sometimes, especially when you're doing deeper skin tones, it's very easy to make it look almost gray if you use certain colors. With it being the burnt sienna, which is already a red base, and then having that reddish purple, I was able to pull it back into being a warmer color even after I used the blues to cool it down in certain areas. And a lot of these things I just learned through trial and error, many years of using certain colors together and not necessarily liking how they worked together, and deciding that what I was mixing was making something look muddy, etc., so on. A lot of the creative process is making mistakes and learning from those mistakes. You can't be afraid to fail, you have to fail to get better. And even towards the beginning of this painting, there were certain points where I thought it looked hideous, but I knew I had to keep building up the shades to get it to look a certain way. Because as I was playing around with the gouache, I realized that it behaves a lot like watercolor, but it also behaves like acrylic. And if you have a base knowledge of either of those things, you can go, oh wait, this is similar to something I've used before. And you can figure out where to go from there. At this point in the painting, I have gone over the hair again in the Prussian blue, and I will be pulling in the black very soon. And even after I get the black in there, I do pull in some of the red purple over it to insinuate highlights. I did not use any straight white in this painting. I just realized that. I used some black over blue for the liner and for the hair, but because that blue base is already there, it's not like a straight up black. But I didn't think this piece needed any white highlights. If I were to pull in anywhere, I would probably just do it in her eyes, and that's it. The earrings I do change. I was originally trying to make them like some weird looking fringe earrings, and I decided it would be better as a continuation of her hair to give her the idea of having this interesting but short little pulled up hairdo. And I did learn that the gouache is opaque enough to be able to layer over it and to cover up some mistakes, because I was able to adjust her facial features throughout and do stuff like adjust the hair. And the red, violet, purple to use over that black as some highlights in her hair. But yeah, to talk about all the items in this box, I really enjoyed the gouache a lot more than I thought I was going to, which I already said, but I'm repeating it. I liked the color combination. I really think they all work very well together. The reddish browns and yellows play against that leaf green very well, and that reddish purple does as well. They all sing very well together as a color palette. I really enjoyed the water brush. It is my second favorite next to the Crayon d'Ache now. And I really did like the watercolor postcards. I just think next time I use them, I have to use less water and definitely tape it down. I need to adjust the way I normally apply stuff in order to use it a little bit better. I also really liked this project. I like how she turned out. She kind of reminds me of this weird mixture between Eartha Kitt, Storm, and Starfire, with maybe a little bit of Kitty Pryde thrown in. Go figure. I really like the effects the gouache was able to get, and I look forward to playing around with these more and maybe getting some other gouache paints later. We shall see. But this project is almost over, which means this video is almost over. If you liked this video, please hit that like button. If you have any comments, questions, feelings, concerns, or you want to let me know how you felt about this month's box, please let me know in that comment section down below. If you want to see more videos like this, please feel free to subscribe. I do Sketchbox videos once a month. I also do Art Snacks videos once a month. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day or night to watch this video and listen to me ramble. I greatly appreciate it. I look forward to hearing from you guys soon, and you'll definitely be hearing from me soon. Bye, everybody!